What's up, world? I'm your host, Angelika Beener, and welcome to Milestones. This is a new podcast where I'm joined by a special guest each episode to discuss landmark albums that are celebrating a milestone year. I am extremely excited about today's guest. He is a brilliant musician and multi-instrumentalist, a prolific composer, one of my favorites, in fact. He is an educator and the creator of Exchange Village, a holistic approach to Black music with pure freedom and creativity in an all-inclusive, cross-media exchange of knowledge through workshops and performances. A solo and collaborative journey dissolving perceived genre and technology lines. He is a two-time Grammy-nominated saxophonist and producer, and his latest album, People of the Sun, on Blue Note Records, is available everywhere. He is Marcus Strickland. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. What an intro. That made me feel kind of good.
Well, it's all it's apropos, it's honest, it is what it is, brother.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And speaking of milestones, this is a milestone year for you. Are you aware?
I'm not really sure. What's the milestone of this?
I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna quiz Marcus and see if he knows what milestone year this is for him. So this year, if I'm not
Uh-huh.
mistaken,
Uh-huh.
you crossed the 20-year mark of your debut album at last.
Wow. I don't think I want to know that milestone. Little marker in time, no.
Isn't that
Yeah, can you
something?
delete that part? No, no, I'm joking. That's dope. That's the 20th year.
20 years,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, 2001. Yeah, 21.
Just like
Wow.
that. Now, I don't know
That's
what
crazy.
month it was released, but it's definitely the
Yeah,
20th year,
I have no idea what month, but yeah, that's dope. That's
right?
wow. Two
What
decades.
how does that feel?
Um, wow, it feels like time has just passed so fast and so much has happened since then and I can look back and really be proud of the journey that has taken place since then. Everybody on that record has done amazing things, solo and also as sidemen and uh, and you've just really come a long way. So yeah, and we made such great music together. The chemistry and everything between us, uh, you know, it's just so many memories that come up every time I listen to that record. I'm like, wow, I remember being in the hallway of New School just with my friends and just listen to the record over and over and over and over again because it was our first time releasing uh, an official recording.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. With
Mhm,
Brotherhood, like you said,
mhm,
that particular band and the members of the band, that was some of
mhm,
your earliest, if not the first time hearing
mhm.
yourselves on a recorded studio album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why we called that record at last is because what you're seeing there is the accumulation of ever since we started on our instruments and listening to music, cognizant, of who's on the records. Like ever since those formative years leading up to the year that we actually recorded that, it felt like a long journey to then.
That's the thing, because we are here to talk about a release that came out 60 years ago. Next month, March, will be
Hmm.
60 years
Hmm.
uh, before this album that was life changing for both of us, I'm sure. And that is
Definitely.
John Coltrane's My Favorite Things. And
Yes.
what I did not know prior to, asking you if you'd be willing to talk about this record with me was that it has a real personal meaning for you outside of just it being a killing album. So
Hmm.
this is so can you talk to me a little bit about just how you were introduced to this album?
Oh, definitely. So the the great history of this record with me is first of all, there's a vinyl that's called "The Best of John Coltrane." I love the cover. It's a dope picture of Coltrane in a very solemn pose, and it has my favorite things on there. It's got Naima, Central Park West, Giant Steps. Uh, it's all on that record. And that vinyl is a vinyl that my dad would play. He would rock that all the time. Even before we were born, when we were still in the womb, he would rock my favorite things from this vinyl into the womb, put the womb to the speaker. And our farm mom, she had all these sound waves going through her. But um, I really appreciate him doing that. I have no doubt that it affected us in some kind of way to hear things while we were in those very formative years,
Oh man. Yeah.
zygotes and everything.
Right,
but
exactly.
but yeah, we used to rock in our little rocking chairs to this record. um, when we were little tiny babies, and then as toddlers, you know, uh, we would run our cars back and forth, a little Hot Wheels and everything, back and forth to the music while we're in the car, and we had Jerry curl and eat the hole in the back of the seat.
Ah,
uh,
ah.
this record has traveled so many years with us, and by the time we were 11, that's that's when I first really became cognizant of what I was listening to all those years.
Mm,
Because we came back from band class, my brother announced that he picked drums as his instrument. I announced that I picked the saxophone,
mm-hmm.
and my dad got very excited. He was like, "Wow, you guys you want to play instruments? Oh, you saxophone and drums? That's very complimentary." It's like, uh, I gotta show you who my favorite saxophonist and drummer are. It's John Coltrane and Elvin Jones. And he said, "I've been playing this record the whole time for you guys." He took it out and he played it for us, and it was like listening to it with a whole different pair of ears, a whole different perspective, because we were finally cognizant of what was going on. It's like that's a saxophone playing the melody. Those are drums in the background providing all that rhythm. And my dad was breaking down all kinds of things about the recording. It's like, look, do you recognize that song? We're like, yeah, it's like that's from a movie called The Sound of Music. It was like, oh, dope, yeah, yeah, I remember them sing about their favorite things. It was like, yeah, John Coltrane does this a lot. He'll take a very famous song and do his own version of it. And see how he's playing the melody different every single time? That's called improvisation. And then he went to Elvin. He was like, see, Elvin, you see the snare drum and the cymbals, like the pattern that he's playing between that, those are called triplets. And that's a very important rhythm. And he broke that down to my brother. They would do all kind of rudiments and stuff like that. Is this recording became the holy grail for us. Um,
That's unbelievable.
yeah,
Wow.
hmm
Wow. I did not know that.
yeah, hmm it's
And so,
incredible.
yeah, so was your dad, is your is your dad, or was he a musician? I never I know uh his profession by
hmm
day, but
Yeah, yeah.
he sounds like he's got an incredible ear for starters.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He was since the age of 8, he was a percussionist, and actually through college he was playing percussion. He was the principal percussionist in the section actually for the I think it's the Fort Lauderdale or maybe the Miami Beach Symphony Orchestra. He was the principal, you
What?
know, heads, snare and everything. He had them rudiments crispy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he also played the kit, and we heard him play occasionally on the drum set for this like neighborhood uh, barbecue thing that they would do in our neighborhood, and it was a neighborhood called La Mirage. I wonder if it's still around in Miami. But you know. we remember seeing our dad playing the drums, and we were like, wow, I didn't know he did this because his trade by day was a lawyer. He was a lawyer,
Right.
and he's now retired, but like, yeah, he's always been an avid music fan, and also he was the designated DJ for parties at University of Miami. So yeah,
I
so
can't.
he had an incredible crate of records, and he had this dope it was a dope cover for Mandolin. Uh, uh, I can't remember the name. I think that's the name of the group, Mandolin, with the monkey. Um, what's the name of the
Oh,
monkey with the colors and stuff on the face? Um,
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. It's
not
escaping me as
mandolin.
well.
It's something else.
Is it mandrel?
Mandrel, yeah. I
Yeah, yeah.
said mandolin. That's another instrument, isn't
Right, right.
it? Yeah,
When
mandrel.
musicians, yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is always turn everything else into music. But
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Mandrel. Yeah, he had this. I remember that cover. I remember the cover for the Best of John Coltrane, from which he would play My Favorite Things all the time. And I remember the album cover for Talking Book, Stevie
Oh
Wonder.
man.
Yeah, and it's such an incredible milestone of my childhood to see that cover, in particular Talking Book. So I hung it on the wall in my room because there's very incredible memories, uh, coming from that imagery, the braids and everything, him laying on the grass and
The
the earthy
braille,
colors. Yeah, the
the braille
braille.
on the record. I remember
Yeah.
as a kid running my finger across
Uh-huh.
the bumps, as I would call them,
Yeah.
the bumpy paper. I thought that was
hmm
so cool. And even for
Yeah.
me, it's so funny because Coltrane was also what was playing when I was in the womb, but it was the Coltrane and Duke Ellington album. And
Oh,
so
incredible.
similarly, I came out
Mm-hmm.
feeling like I knew, feeling akin to, or a soul tie or some type of
Mm-hmm.
kindred spirit to, and I still feel that to Coltrane. It's a
Yes.
weird thing, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel, no one can tell me that that's not my soul relative spirit guide something. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's some type of a soul tie. And for
Definitely.
me it was like definitely the ballads record that was played
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and the again the Duke and Train
Mm-hmm.
album, the Giant Steps. And it wasn't until I was maybe 10 or 11 years old that I really got into my favorite things. And it was
Mm-hmm.
not my mom who was playing it, my mother or dad, but it was my brother. And I just remember
Mm-hmm.
that blue cover. It's similar to that
Oh
blue
yeah.
in your
Mm-hmm.
background, that beautiful
Mm-hmm.
sort of vintage Cookie Monster blue, you know,
Yeah.
with
The
the
Saint
red,
yeah.
yeah, with the big,
Eve's Klein Blue. Yeah, that's the name of the
oh,
color
what
that
is
I
the name
have.
of it?
Eve's Klein.
Eve's Climb Blue.
Yeah.
That's a vibe. It is such
Yeah.
a vibe. And
Yeah,
that's
it
how
really
I
is.
was, introduced to that
Mm-hmm.
record all those years ago, with the red lettering and him
Mm-hmm.
standing there with the soprano saxophone. And it wasn't like this crisp, clean graphic. It looked kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but,
Yeah.
but that
Look kind
added
of
to the mystique of the whole
yeah.
thing. It was like, what is this record about? That's how
Mm-hmm.
it felt. And
Yeah.
so, you know, this record was recorded in October of 1960, released in 1961. And the group that's on this record, which is Train, McCoy, is Steve Davis, and Elvin Jones. And they
Mm-hmm.
recorded over maybe a week's time or so. They recorded all the material from this record, um, the Coltrane Plays the Blues record, and I believe Coltrane Sound. And they recorded this record in like 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
or something crazy like that. These Atlantic recordings, this is a time where we get to see a lot of the components that make up the culmination of who he was as an artist. Like a lot of his defining artistry, his technical prowess, his harmonic innovation, the prolificacy as a writer, this journey that he was on where, he talks about searching. And I know we can tend to over romanticize or even maybe oversimplify what that process was, but like, it's just such a time. These Atlantic recordings for me are really, really special. Like,
They really are.
what do you feel about that period of Coltrane?
I feel like Coltrane's sound was in a very interesting stage at that point. It was uh, extremely bright, and it was very crisp, and I could tell that he was really, really deep in the shed. Like there's a certain vibrancy to a saxophonist sound when they're like really, really deep in the shed, and
Hmm.
hearing that muscular tenor sound from that period is very inspiring. It's like, yo, he has been shedding
Right, right.
deep in the shed, yo. Like, no, there's no doubt about it because of like the sound is so strong and the sheets of sound and like hearing and also the acoustics, how it was recorded, whatever room they were using, that was it. That was it,
Yeah.
Jack.
So I was
Hmm.
having this thought, right? I was like, so I'm like, listening to these records and getting, ready to talk to you about this album, and had me going down the rabbit hole and listening to all the stuff of this particular band, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, I feel like Steve Davis got George Coleman a little bit. Like when I
Probably, yeah.
right, it's like,
Yeah.
and as
Hmm.
much as I love Wayne, I bow to
Yeah,
Wayne, he is the
definitely.
man, but like
Hmm.
some of my favorite recordings are the stuff with George Coleman.
Yeah,
You know what I
definitely.
mean?
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
like with this band, I guess it's not. I mean, Jimmy Garrison comes and it's just
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
alchemy. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
that was the thing to make this sort of like
Hmm.
mystic brew, if you will. But like,
Yeah.
I do have a sincere appreciation for
Oh
the
yeah.
for what Steve Davis was
Oh,
doing.
definitely. He held it down on that recording, and I feel that I feel one part of that particular song, my that track, my favorite things. One part that is absolutely indispensable
Mm.
is McCoy Tyner. Like his
Oh man.
playing on that, it's just like that. It would not sound the way it sounded without McCoy Tyner playing. Nobody was playing piano like that at all at that time. If you got an imitator later on and put him in there, it's just one of there's like the whole sonic landscape that made uh, that melody just sit so well in the mix and also within the performance. Um, all of that is created by what McCoy is playing, and uh, I express this a lot to my students and also to uh, fellow peers of mine, is that production is not something that just appeared when we started, having all these uh, electronic ways of producing music.
Yes.
Production was done live through the musical abilities of the musicians. Like McCoy, the way he's hitting the piano sets up a certain texture sonically.
Yes.
Uh, the density of the chords, the fourths, moving the fourths in certain directions, it creates a whole texture that is very palpable. If you were to sit down and mix the track, it's like because of his playing, that is why the sonically that recording is the way it is. Um, and you could say the same thing for the way that Elvin tuned his bass drum compared to the way that Roy Haynes tuned his bass drum. And when you
Yes.
hear Roy Haynes play with Coltrane, it's a whole other sound. And the
Absolutely.
cymbals as well. In Jimmy Garrison's bass, the muddiness and the amount of low end in comparison to say Steve Davis or another bassist that Coltrane had in his group at any point in time, it creates a certain sound that you can't really duplicate with any other musician. Um, and it's just as palpable and just as important to uh, the uh, the history and the legend that this particular recording has. It's just as integral as Jay Dilla is to Slum Village. It's like
Oh man.
there's
Yeah.
like it would not be that without those particular musicians. And I can't remember who where I heard this, but there was another pianist that did another take of Favorite Things with Coltrane.
Really?
Shortly after he did the take, Coltrane said, "Thank you very much," and he dismissed him and got McCoy Tyner.
Oh, interesting. Shall we
I've got
name
a
this?
fin.
Shall we name them or shall we not?
We'll definitely name him as soon as I find out who it is. I gotta remember who it is. I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah,
I gotta
that
look it
I
up.
did not know that. So wait a
The
minute. Is
person who would
this
really know is the cat who wrote the Love Supreme book.
Oh, Ashley Kahn.
Yeah, Ashley Khan would definitely know who that was.
Okay, I gotta
Um,
hit him up and find that out.
yeah,
Sure, for
yeah,
sure. So is
but
my favorite
mhm.
things to that end, is this McCoy's first recording with Train?
I'm not gonna really say that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
it's
be surprised if Coltrane. I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to look. He was looking for a certain sound to go along with the mystique of this melody, and in that instance, was like, you know what? I think McCoy Tyner would be a better fit.
this
You
is
know,
it. Yeah.
hearing him from another session or something, I wouldn't be surprised that was kind of like the pivotal moment that made McCoy the central. uh,
Man,
yeah.
because let's get into that because
Mm,
the to your point, and I think that's such a dope point that you're making in terms of production and the
mm,
way that
mm,
people, when they even hear the word, their mind
mm-hmm,
automatically goes to electronics. But
mm-hmm,
the production is, it's the imagination, it's
mm-hmm,
the, like you said, the musicianship, it's the approach to the instrument, it's the approach to
mm-hmm.
the arrangement.
Yeah.
And with my favorite things, the tune itself, it opens the record. It so it's a Rodgers and Hammerstein song for everybody listening, obviously.
Mm-hmm,
And so at the time, it's from the film, which is like 1965 or 1966, but the play, the Broadway show, I think was 1960 or so. And
mm-hmm,
so with Coltrane recording this in 1960, he's not recording a tried and true standard. This is sort of
mm-hmm.
like
Exactly.
a newer pop tune in a way.
Mm-hmm,
And so he's bringing this song to them, and then there's this arrangement, because if you listen to the Rodgers and Hammerstein version, by the time you hear like the form one time through, you got it. It's like, oh, okay, this is
mm-hmm.
this is the form of the song.
Exactly.
With Train's version, and I've been listening to this version for 30 something years, the
Mm-hmm,
form is still mysterious to me. Like, no matter how
mm-hmm,
many times I try to figure out the form, and it's like
mm-hmm,
in my DNA, I know when it's going to go into that major
mm-hmm.
thing,
Oh yeah.
but
Mm-hmm,
I know it in my spirit. I know when it's coming, but like I can't say that I particularly understand the form. And it seems like when McCoy solos, the form changes a little bit. So let's
mm-hmm.
just talk
Yeah.
about like the arrangement itself and the
Oh yeah.
form of this song.
Yeah. I really uh I really admire the way that they arranged this song. It's so interesting that you brought that up because I covered that song at a gig at Smoke a few years ago, and that was my first time actually really transcribing it. Like I've been listening to it and getting the sound in my ear, and every now and then I'll pick up something from what Coltrane was playing, but to transcribe the whole arrangement, that was the first time really paying attention to the actual form that they're playing. And I noticed that the minor sound was designated for when Coltrane was playing the melody, um, and the release is the major sound, right? And
Yeah.
then when it gets, I think maybe after four times of playing the melody, they stay on the major, uh, and they let McCoy Tyner just rip all over that. He's just
Man.
all over it, all up in
Woo!
it. Just incredible, these thick voicings. The piano sounded like it's about to explode.
Ye-
And playing with McCoy Tyner myself in Brazil,
Wow.
to hear that sound right next to me, like I played with McCoy Tyner in like a big band setting before that, but to play with him within his quartet in Brazil, that was an incredible trip, man. Because like I was hearing that sound right on the stage, like, and it sounds like the piano's about to explode, and
Oh my God.
it's an incredible energy that he would stir up from playing, and uh, you know, one thing that's very apparent with playing with McCoy is like, you better get off the stage, you better get in and get out very, very, very efficiently. Make your
Yeah.
statement heard, because he's already heard everything that can be done on every single tune through Coltrane. Like, you're not going to play anything that's going to be more impressive. So after about two choruses, it's time to get out. No matter what, I don't care where you are in your solo.
Right,
I don't
right.
care if you. It's like, I could just nope, just get off the stage.
Thank you for your.
He's heard everything that can be done. There's no way you're gonna, like that's one thing that's very apparent with McCoy. And yeah, so you got that major sound. McCoy's riffing it, and then the way that Coltrane grabs back into the center of the picture.
Mm.
That's like probably the highest climax I feel in the whole piece. Um, and it's it, the switch to minor and major is something that I didn't even notice, and it's because it's like I knew something was different was happening, but I really noticed it until my later years, because McCoy had a systematic way of voicing major in a way that made it less happy.
Yes.
uh,
Let's talk. Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Keep going.
it's like the choice of intervals, the voicings make it added more grit to the major than regular pianists. you
Yes.
know, that's where you get into the production type of thing. It's like, like the choices that were made on their instruments with their musical skill. The choice by Coltrane to say, you know what, I'm going to use McCoy for this. How
Exactly.
it's such a pivotal moment, and it's like that's that's a producer mindset. Coach,
Absolutely.
the person who was playing before probably did an incredible job, but it wasn't right for the sound that was in his mind.
Exactly.
Um, so those choices are made. I feel instinctively. I feel like it comes from years uh, of hearing different situations, different textures, uh, and also from being in the studio a whole lot. And the musicians back then were in the studio all the time. They
Right.
were recording so much more than we are now. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and it's like, so like there's so much time spent in that studio, so it's like you start to get this understanding of texture and uh, not just being on your instrument and just thinking of playing everything right, but how you play it and the texture that you want to get across through the speakers in somebody's car, or or even in the dance club, or even
Yeah.
in the stereo in your living room. It's
Yeah.
like when you start thinking that way, that's a producer mindset, and I think that's a total producer move that Coltrane made to pick McCoy Tyner for that.
I
Um,
think you are so spot on with that. McCoy
mm,
really is the the center somehow, or
mhm,
the
mhm,
something, some word that I probably is too small for McCoy Tyner, but it's
mhm,
such the glue of
mhm,
that. I mean, of course, Elvin, there's no drummer who could have brought it to that spiritual height as well,
mhm,
other
yeah,
than Elvin. And then this
mhm,
incredible, mysterious, passionate, haunting uh, thing that Coltrane has going on. And
mhm,
it's really interesting
yeah,
for me with Coltrane as it pertains to his reworks of certain songs, because
mhm,
you can tell that he really pays attention to the lyrics as well. That would be
yeah,
my guess,
mhm,
is that he really
mhm,
internalizes the lyric. And one thing that
yeah,
I really appreciate about this from a production standpoint, like you're talking about, that I
mhm,
appreciate about this song is that he doesn't quote that piece, the when the dog bites, da da da.
yeah,
He
mhm,
doesn't get to that until, I mean, that's how he closes it.
yeah.
It's
He
like
closes the whole piece
the
with that. Yeah,
whole thing with
that's
just
right.
that
They
one.
save it.
Exactly. It's like it doesn't
That's some
come
producer
around.
stuff.
That's
That's
some
some
it's
producer type stuff. Yeah.
yes. I mean, it's so
Mhm,
modern. It's so,
mhm,
I think of, you brought up Dilla. I feel like that's something that
mhm,
a producer like that would do, where it's like,
mhm.
because if he had introduced that part of the song in the cycles previous, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
It has to
it
have
doesn't
this,
work. Mhm.
no, it has to have this vampy, modally, it has to be exactly what it is to have that transcendent thing that is evoked in us when we hear it, I feel like. And then
Yeah.
he's like, and then I'm gonna drop this on you on the end.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
even how he plays that,
Mhm.
how he, oh my gosh, just how
Yeah.
he plays that line.
Mhm.
And I can just,
Mhm.
I'm hearing it in my head right now.
Yeah, like when it was like
Right.
like right there.
Oh,
It's like the way he plays it is so, it's just so subtle. Like he's not overstating at all. It's just exactly what's needed. He lets the ascension of the actual pitch create the momentum back up rather than the volume. He's not getting any louder. He's just simply letting the notes in their pitch create that type of tension. And like
oh. Yeah.
And then like then I was just like, ah, he just goes beast.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so gorgeous. And like you said, oh wow,
Perfectly performed. Yeah,
that is blowing my mind, what you just brought up about
yeah.
building that tension without building the volume. How do we,
Hmm.
without
Yeah.
increasing rather the volume, excuse me.
Mm,
And how do
hmm,
we do that in a way that's subtle and intense and
hmm.
swelling? And
Yeah.
he doesn't resolve it in this major, he doesn't resolve it in the major. It's like, and then,
Hmm.
and you think
Yeah.
about it, the lyric is, and then I don't feel so bad, right? Which you would think is major, and then
Hmm.
I don't feel so bad. But it's like no, it's like there's beauty in the melancholy. There's beauty
Hmm.
in this. It's just
Yeah,
masterful. It's
it
so
really
masterful.
perfectly performed. Perfect choice of the musicians for the recording, and yeah, it doesn't get any better than that,
It really doesn't.
and you
And
can't
then
replicate it ever.
right, yeah, and I mean your performance of it at Smoke, I've
Hmm.
seen it with David Bryant and Ben Williams and
Hmm.
DJ
Hmm.
Strickland. It is it is well, I have to tell you, and I do
Hmm.
want to get into this too, but
Hmm.
we'll talk about, I guess, I don't know, should we go into the next track or should we talk about the soprano saxophone? Because I feel like,
Let's talk about soprano. Yeah, I love that.
yeah, because when I was just thinking about hearing you do it at Smoke, and then I was saying, well, first of all, outside of Train, you are my favorite soprano saxophone player.
Oh wow, thank you so much.
I
Wow.
mean, no, that's why I'm hyped. I'm hyped. I'm honored. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I can hardly stay in my seat talking to you about this record because there's very few people that I could talk to, a lot of people about Coltrane, but
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of people I would want to talk to about Coltrane on soprano.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you're at the top of my list with that because
Oh wow, thank you.
you're literally my favorite living soprano player for sure. And so I kind of want to talk to you about the soprano. Like, so how popular was the soprano itself when Train did this record? Because I know he was a big fan of Johnny Hodges, but even Johnny Hodges, I
Hmm.
by the mid 40s had stopped playing soprano altogether, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
popular was this instrument at the time of My Favorite Things, to your knowledge?
Yeah. It's that instrument is so it is so um it's like it takes an incredible player to really bring it into the forefront. So you had
Hmm.
Bechet.
Hmm.
Bechet is the first person to really bring that instrument to the forefront because the beginning of jazz is synonymous with the really beginning of the saxophone in terms of popular music, and actually finding a place because the saxophone was banned in China. It was banned in Russia. Um, it was
Really?
made at yeah, it was made as a military band instrument, a woodwind that would be loud enough to carry, uh, within a military band. Uh, a lot of Adolf Sax's inventions were for that purpose, to be heard loudly and be played as easily as possible. He made many inventions. He made an invention that led to the sousaphone, the one that's wrapped, the tuba that's
Hmm.
wrapped around the person.
Yeah.
That's because of Adolf Sax. The modern bass clarinet, the patent for that came from Adolf Sax. He improved on the bassette, which many uh, inventors were trying to make this low instrument. He made it so that you can actually hear it and project it. That's why it looks like a saxophone with all the extremities and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, Adolf Sax was such a great inventor that people were hating on him in the worst way. There were three assassination attempts on him. Yeah. So like
Oh,
yeah, and
okay.
his really the claim to fame was of course with the saxophone and the family of the saxophones. And it made its way into military bands in America. And uh, then you had the Dixieland. I don't want to even say that. Like the the second line New Orleans type stuff was going on, the steamboat bands and all that stuff. And uh, the person of prominence during that time was Sidney Bechet, and he was an incredible clarinetist and soprano saxophonist. And that's where the soprano saxophone gained its popularity. Uh, it's just like the soprano of an opera. Like it
Mm.
is the star. It is gonna be the star of the show, no matter what.
Yes. Yes.
um, so you better be strong on it, right? So Sidney Bechet, the lineage goes to Johnny Hodges. Hodges was a protege of Sidney Bechet. He studied the hell out of Sidney Bechet, followed him around, got all kinds of knowledge from him. So that incredible vibrato that Johnny Hodges has, that comes in lineage from Sidney Bechet. Johnny makes a switch to alto as his main instrument, and that becomes like the main voice, especially on those Strayhorn Ellington songs. It's like there's nobody who could play those melodies the way that Johnny Hodges did.
Man.
The way that he was scooping to the notes and the vibrato and everything, that was just, it would just really stick out in the bands, like the opera singer, the soprano, and uh, and then you had people learning from Johnny Hodges, such as John Coltrane. John Coltrane was on alto. He would emulate both Charlie Parker and Johnny Hodges, and
Right.
uh, that he was in the Navy in a military band of some sorts, and he switched to tenor at some point, and I remember reading in the Miles Davis autobiography that that Miles gave uh, John Coltrane a soprano saxophone
That's right.
as
Yeah.
it was like a going away present. I think Train was maybe involved with a lot of drugs at that time and wasn't really reliable,
Yeah.
and they parted ways, and that was one of the presents. That was a present that he gave
Yeah.
John Coltrane. That
I think
that
from
very
like an
soprano.
antique dealer or something like that. It was some kind of
Yeah,
real kind of slick uh
yeah. It was a
piece.
dope.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was a Selmer, and it had like a very special spatula. Spatula is the mechanism that we use to hit the lower notes. The spatula system looked very unique compared to other spatula systems. So I uh, one of the most iconic pictures of him is on that Impulse record, Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
On the cover is him with a soprano saxophone. He doesn't even play it on the record.
Oh, that's right. It was like a grayish background, like a light background. It's
Yeah,
very
like
like,
it's a white room or something.
yeah,
Just
exactly.
like this with the soprano, and I think he's got a cigarette in one of his hands. It's so cool. It's such a dope photo. That picture right there made me want to play the soprano saxophone
You're
so
kidding
bad.
me.
I
You're
saw that
kidding
picture. I was
me.
like, I want a soprano saxophone. I want it now. I used to yo, I used to stare at pictures of soprano saxophones so much that it pissed off my dad. He's
Really?
like, better
Why?
stop, better stop having that pipe dream. You ain't gonna get no soprano saxophone. You better deal with that alto saxophone.
Now, why did he feel that way? Did he think it was too eccentric, or what was the deal there?
I think it's just in terms of, it's a yet another instrument to buy and stuff like that. And
Oh, okay.
it's like I was just staring. I would be staring at this thing so much.
You better stare
It
at that
might,
alto.
yeah, exactly. You know how
Better put
black
your eyes
parents
over
are,
there.
man. You put your
Oh,
ass back on something that actually exists. but but I think he was just messing with me because he actually did buy me a soprano saxophone towards the end of my middle school career.
oh, you had a
um,
soprano by middle school.
yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
and
Marcus.
it was like a Christmas present, and the very first thing that I played on it was Afro Blue. It was
Wow.
a duet with my brother. My brother got like maybe a new drum set or new cymbals or something,
Yeah.
and we played. It was a LA sax. It was a black soprano. I still have it actually.
Oh my
I'm
gosh. Yes, please. I need to see this.
yeah. Ah,
Look at
yeah. This is
this.
This is the same exact instrument. I just have it sitting up there because this was the answer to my pipe dream. It was just
Oh my goodness.
my pop just, got it for me, and see, it's LA Sax.
LA Sax, yep.
That's the same brand that made the presidential sax for Clinton, that
Really?
with the flag and everything on
Oh
it.
Lord. Uh-huh.
So and uh, President Clinton visited our school. He visited Miami, and he was in Coral Gables, and we were playing for a function that he was attending. And
Mhm.
he came and shook all of our hands, and he had an extended conversation with me. Everybody was jealous about, like, oh, I see you got an LA sax,
Oh
right?
my God.
Oh, I have an LA sax too, the presidential model. Like everybody else, he was like, hi.
Right, right, right.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah, that was very fun. And but yeah, LA Sax, that's the company that makes this horn.
Hmm.
It's I don't think they're in business anymore. But
Hmm.
yeah, this is something I want to keep because I was extra extra happy. You couldn't tell me anything once I got a soprano saxophone. I played everything on it. I tried to learn everything that I learned on the alto on this thing.
Oh my
Marker and time.
goodness.
And this is my current soprano. It's a
Oh.
Yanagasawa uh, S901, and it's silver plated.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
it's just an incredible instrument, and it's never really failed me. I played like another soprano for a little bit, and then went back to this one because it's just the silver. Silver is a great metal. It resonates more than any other metal that they use for saxophones or
Oh, okay.
any kind of brass instrument. It's so
Okay.
the silver plate I feel is better than solid silver. They had a choice for solid silver,
Yeah.
um, but there's something about brass. You gotta have that brass in there, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great sounding instrument. I love the. It sounds like a kid. Sounds like like a child, a wise child.
Yeah. So
And
let's get into Coltrane's sound on soprano because
mhm,
this sound on soprano is
yeah,
very unique. It doesn't
yeah, it
sound
is.
like anybody else that I can think
Yeah,
of. And most when I think of the soprano, especially in modern times, there's like a butteriness. There's a buttery tone or a buttery sound to it or something like that. But Train is not buttery on soprano. It's very.
it's kind of like the quality of like maybe a child having a stuffy nose, and they have that very cute nasally voice type of thing.
Yeah.
Like I feel he has that type of sound, and a lot of times I feel with the soprano saxophone, he's imitating sonically. It sounds like he's imitating a snake charmer, the way that he
Oh
approaches it,
yeah,
and you can
absolutely.
you can definitely hear it on that recording of Shim Shim Cherie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, something like that.
Yep.
Like the way that he approaches the low end of the soprano, the quality that he got in the low register was very harsh. Like he would instead of smoothing it out with like kind of like a subtone type of thing, he would play it full on and embrace the how much louder the bottom of the horn is than the top. Um, something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
when he got down to the low register, uh, it had a very I think I have a feeling that he would have the mics at the bottom of the horn, so it'd be like extra loud and extra nasally. the way that it was captured and also the way that he was playing it, and blow down into the horn as if it's like an English horn or an oboe. And
Ah,
I've noticed that most of my favorite saxophonists play the soprano like that. Like you got Branch Marsalis who approaches the soprano that way too, and Wayne Shorter blows down into the instrument a whole lot too. Um, then you have people like Kenny G who has like he holds the instrument straight out
straight
and
out,
kind
almost
of
like a
like through the
flute.
crowd.
Right,
Almost, you
exactly.
know, that brightens the sound. Like let me see if
Oh,
I can
interesting.
imitate it. With,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not sure if you can hear it on that
I
side.
can absolutely hear that subtlety.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it yeah,
Ah,
it changes
okay.
the because when you're blowing down into the instrument, the air is traveling like this, and it hits the far edge and goes down along this side of the horn. So it's not interrupted that much from the keys that are moving. It makes a more round, fat sound. Um, as opposed to when you're playing like this,
Mm-hmm.
it's going straight in, and if you have a straight neck, it's going even more straight in. It's going
Right.
straight in, and it's just right against the fingerboard, so it gets interrupted and stuff. It's not as warm and fat sounding, you know. Um,
Ah,
Posture
interesting.
is everything with horns.
And I'll be honest with you, my
Mhm,
ignorance, I thought that they
mhm.
were holding the horn like this to try to look slick or something like that. Like to try, like especially the more smooth leaning artists,
Yeah,
they'd have the,
yeah,
the horn tilted up to the sky and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. So
And
I
that
just thought it
and you're
was
probably right about that. You're probably right about them trying to look slick, but the people who are cognizant about posture, they tend to
sure.
hold it down.
And most people would not, I don't think, hear that, like if someone never heard train on soprano and they said and they heard you describe it as nasal, which I think is spot on, that would
Hmm.
probably sound like a turnoff to someone. Well, I don't want to hear someone sound nasally, but
Hmm.
it works so
Yeah.
well. And I think,
Hmm.
to your point about it sounding like a snake charmer, because I think I read
Hmm.
where he was getting really into more Eastern approaches to music and Eastern sounds and compositions and things like that,
Hmm. Hmm.
and how that probably influenced his sound or his tone in particular on
Hmm.
soprano as well.
Yeah, definitely. I have no doubt that uh, you know that it's influenced from the East that helped form his sound.
Hmm.
I really love how he utilizes that. That's some producer stuff right there too.
That
Just the
too,
way that he,
exactly.
the type of sound he wanted to get out of that horn.
Just pouring a little
Is
water.
very different than Bechet, very different than Johnny Hodges. Um, that was a very distinct thing, and it's like it's so weird how the resurgence of the popularity of the instrument comes along with the strong player. It's like, you know, John Coltrane, Steve Lacy, the Shade, Johnny Hodges, like
Yeah.
it always comes, then there's Wayne Shorter, and then you got,
Marcus Strickland.
oh, come on now.
I mean, since we naming people, you
Thank
know.
you so much. And it's like, because there's this, there's during that whole time, there's other people playing the soprano, but it ain't really hitting the mark
It's
because
exactly
I feel a lot of saxophonists, they see the soprano as, oh, this is just a tenor up an octave, and it's like, no, it's a
because
totally
it's the
different
same
instrument.
key, right? It's in the same key.
Same key, up right up an octave.
Hmm.
But it's like the change in the size of the bore, the change in um, it changes how minute a movement it takes to make it out of tune, because everything is more dire because everything's
Oh,
smaller.
okay,
So you have to have very
okay.
tight embouchure in order to make that thing work. Whereas with tenor, you can have a more loose embouchure, and there's more give. It's a different instrument. It's a
Yeah,
totally different.
totally different instrument. I did not even think about the tuning. And even with
Hmm.
train, how sometimes the tuning is people can't see what this movement I'm doing on the show, but it
Yeah, yeah,
has a little bit of malleability.
yeah. There's a lot of flexibility
There's some
in the
flexibility
pitch.
there.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's he kind of embraced that quality of the instrument.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas you have people like Branford who can play spot on the pitch, right?
Yes.
And I took a few lessons with him on soprano saxophone, and that really brought my sound up to the par with what it is today because of my studies with Branford, because he studied the shit out of soprano, from Bechet to now. Like, he really understands the instrument. Uh,
But he's gorgeous.
and
He's absolutely
Yeah,
gorgeous on soprano.
oh my God, it's incredible. And man, I remember one day I heard that Kanye hired Kenny G to play for uh what's his wife's name?
Oh,
Kim
Kardashian.
Kardashian, to play for her on Valentine's Day. And
Yes.
and somebody was talking to me about it, and I was like, see, now if I was Kanye, with the knowledge that I have, I would have done this. And they're like, okay, you're gonna just like hire like a dope, somebody that you like. It's like, not only that, I would hire both Kenny G and Branford Marsalis. I would have her come into the room blindfolded and have her listen to both of them play separate times, right?
Right.
And ask her which one she liked the best.
Oh, that is hilarious. Okay, and then depending on who she chose, what would that mean? So if
That
she
would mean either divorce or live happily ever after. But yeah, I can
oh
imagine a whole lot of stuff. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Okay. Oh man, that is hilarious.
But yeah,
So
hearing and mm,
uh,
and hearing uh I'm sorry for deviating so much from the topic, but like
no,
hearing those Sting records with Bradford playing soprano on him,
yeah,
it's
man.
like I can't imagine anybody else's sound with that group at all.
Yeah,
It's
for
like
sure.
that made the record, having that
Totally.
particular soprano sound.
Oh
Yeah.
man. I mean, just
Mm,
even him on I think the first time I heard Branford on soprano that's really sticking out in my mind. I was about
mm.
12 and it was on the Mo Better Blues soundtrack. And what's
Oh yeah.
crazy because I
Hmm.
was just watching Mo Better Blues yesterday and
Hmm.
I'm listening to I was never a big fan of the Harlem Blues track. Even when
Hmm.
I had the
Yeah.
soundtrack, I would always kind of skip that one. And last
Yeah.
night, and then that's the
But
funny
the
thing,
solo, whoo,
man. Listen,
woo,
that
solo. That's one of my favorite. It gives me chills every time I hear it.
it's so gorgeous, and that
Yeah.
was you took the words out of my mouth. I zeroed in on that solo, man. I
Hmm.
was like, man,
Hmm.
this is the magic
And
right here. This is really
yeah.
it's so absolutely gorgeous.
And just like hearing the soprano sax of Coltrane along with McCoy is a sound of itself. Kenny Kirkland and Bradford.
That's a vibe. It's a thing.
That's like it's a vibe. That's some
Absolutely.
producer stuff. It's just like
Exactly, exactly. And
yeah.
so let's talk. Let's get back to the record and the track that follows, which is Every Time We Say Goodbye, because it's
Hmm. Oh
there's
yeah. Hmm.
something about Train's band in that tempo range for me that is.
Hmm.
I mean, I love impressions. I love the all the like really burnout stuff, and when they're really
Hmm.
going and
Yeah.
stuff. But there's something
Hmm.
about right up in
Oh
here.
yeah. They
There's
get right up in
ah
that groove, that's that pocket, like right
yeah,
at that tempo. It's a very distinct way that they swing at that tempo.
it
Uh,
is. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Okay, so it's
yeah.
not just me because I'm like, there is something
Hmm.
about that tempo. Another tune that I love. It's funny because it's from this Atlantic era as well.
Hmm.
Maybe maybe slightly faster, but Body and Soul.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
The way they
Yeah.
feel, right? It's just something about that
Hmm.
tempo. The
Yeah.
swing is
Yeah. It's
incomparable.
yeah, that's an incredible that was an incredible choice. His choice of Elvin, his choice of McCoy, and Steve is dope, but I gotta say, Jimmy was like
Oh
that was like the punctuation, just like woo,
man,
everything crystallized once he entered.
exactly. It really did. It
Mm,
absolutely did.
a lot of what Coltrane is celebrated for is uh, his harmonic complexity, um, the chops that he had, um, but it really is the use of it. We get to the production at that point. It's like, and it adds that little push, and it also kind of like codifies or identifies that this sound is being put on top of this standard. Um,
Yes, yes.
and McCoy,
Mm.
he just his technique, his agility in any situation, whether it be a ballad, or high tempo, or like a medium, like uh, kind of like that Elvinish uh, mixture between Latin and swinging,
Mm-hmm.
like a
Mm-hmm.
Latin beat and swinging, that Elvin type stuff,
Like
at a
on
medium tempo.
you know what tune that reminds me of? I think of Mr. Knight. I
Oh
think
yeah,
of
definitely,
Elvin,
yeah,
with that kind of
definitely,
yeah, that kind of rhythm that
exactly.
you're speaking of. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's like they with all these ingredients, these things that require actual musical skill instead
Mhm.
of just pushing a button. Like you have to have like certain musical uh knowledge and theory, skill, and feeling in order to achieve these things. Uh, but these things added to the production. It actually made that recording sound so special. It made the group sound special. Um, and this is how you create a signature sound, is that
Mhm.
you pay attention to the small things, the details.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
uh it's not necessarily slathering everything um novel all over the whole performance. It's just that little tiny section that brings uh it actually makes it more pronounced to do it in a very choice type of situation rather than slatter the whole thing with that sound.
Exactly.
Um, you
Exactly.
know, so like I really appreciate uh the forward thinking, the the in the moment thinking,
Mhm.
the pure genius of all of these guys. It's just
Yeah.
the way it was captured. Whoever was recording them knew what the hell they were doing.
That too. That
um,
too. I actually have the vinyl right here.
you got the actual release on vinyl. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Yes. Wow. Incredible. Who does it say?
So the recording engineers were Tom Dowd and Phil Iho. I don't know
Wow.
who that is.
Hmm.
I'm not sure who those cats are, but thank you guys. Thank y'all so much,
Yes, yes, yes.
because like you said, it's captured absolutely beautifully. I wanted to just go back to McCoy for a second because
Hmm.
he does this thing like on his solos, and he does this a lot with Train, but again, these are in representative of their earlier work together. So it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see uh, some sort of artistic patterns that he was laying down, like some things that would be foundational to the group. And one of the things
Mm-hmm.
is that when he solos, like on the solo for Every Time We Say Goodbye, he plays that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
while he's playing
Yeah.
all this like gorgeous
Mm-hmm.
stuff underneath, but
Yes.
sometimes he'll just lay on one note,
One note. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I was remarking about how like Marvin Gaye does that on the I Want You album, where there's certain
Mm-hmm.
times where he'll just take a singular note and
Mm-hmm.
just lay all this other shit underneath it. And so
Mm-hmm.
each time
Yeah.
you play it, that one note has a different color every time. And I feel
Yeah.
like McCoy Tyner is one of the most shining examples of how you can just lay on a note,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
what's happening around that note harmonically, as you
Yes.
say, how
Mm-hmm.
harmonically ingenious, not just Train, but that
Mm-hmm.
whole band, Jimmy,
Yes.
all of
Definitely.
them
Yeah.
were so harmonically just on another planet that it
Yeah.
just, and
And
he
you.
does that in my favorite things too, where there's that one
Yes.
note that he'll do that around. You were going to say something.
Yeah. And this is, stuff like this really it reminds I can see the connection between stuff like that and also sample choices and a beat.
Mm,
Um, like there'll be a Dilla song where there's this one note going being played over and over again, or a melody that's being played over again, and there's different harmony underneath each time. Um, and it shows that there's a it shows the continuity between and the relativity between each of those chords. The
mm-hmm,
fact that you can stay in one key or stay in one note while the chords are moving in very different directions. Um, Wayne Shorter is another composer who used that technique a whole lot.
mm-hmm.
Um, that song Angola, he's
Ooh.
using like a concert B flat, um, probably melodic minor scale within the melody. But the changes are going everywhere. So many and actually McCoy
I
Tyner's
was
on
gonna
that.
say, and he's got the right
McCoy
pianist
and
for
Tony.
sure.
Woo, that's a
That
nice.
part, let's talk about
Woo.
that part. Exactly, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Talk about a sound they created.
man.
But
Speaking of
this.
Angola, there's this part on
Mhm.
the alternate take
Oh yeah.
where Ron, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, there's this
Hmm.
part where they're like they go back up into the swing real intensely, but
Uh-huh.
Ron is
Yeah.
playing some shit. Oh my
Oh
god.
my
Like
God.
I love the recorded version, but the alternate
Hmm.
take has some little
Yeah.
gems in there for me. But that's one of my
Definitely. Yeah.
favorite. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite records.
Those
Yeah, for
those
sure.
alternates are incredible. Yeah. I
Mhm.
gotta revisit it to check out that part you're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But this is I feel that, like a lot of times when I talk about the connectivity between jazz and hip hop,
Hmm.
people from another culture seem confused when I start talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, the whole concept of the vamp, taking a very, very small piece of music, uh, and the bass line of that vamp, the harmony of the vamp, and the notes that are on top, it makes a whole universe, and the repetition of it, it makes the song. It makes
Mm-hmm.
it becomes like it almost becomes an interlude. um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a lot of hip hop artists, it's like when they're looking for something that is quote unquote sampleable, like that's
Right.
sample
Big air
worthy,
quotes. Yeah.
a lot of times they go towards the vamp. Like whatever's vamped in the song, they go towards that,
Yeah.
or they make a vamp out of something that has all those qualities in it. It's got like a dope bass line, very melodic, and the chords are very active, but there's a melody like note just kind of sitting on top of it, or like a certain key center that's sitting on top of it. A lot of sample worthy moments in songs happen at these moments. So like,
Mm.
now
Mhm.
that you mentioned this particular part of every time we say goodbye, I am dying to go to that particular part
Yeah.
and make a beat.
There you go. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
It's there's so much of that in this record, and with McCoy,
yeah.
and in particular, the way he's able to, because of the style of playing that he plays, and like you said, it feels almost like ritualistic. It feels
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
um, because it has a vamp feel or a vamp style to it,
Hmm.
it becomes mantra esque,
Yeah,
so to
definitely.
speak.
It's almost like it's predestined because
Mm,
uh, the people that you have playing are on a high level listening to each other and choosing notes according to what they're listening to, and also according to what they know harmonically and rhythmically, and this is like the highest level of art. They're compose you realize they are really composing. It's all kind of like what is called counterpoint, where a melodic line in the bass with the melodic line on top, with the horn, or just those lines together make a certain type of harmony. And there's like certain, like if you were to analyze it, it would make different chords on every single beat or every single eighth note.
mhm,
You
mhm,
could get different chords or different voicings on
mhm.
every single one of them if you were to do an analysis. Stuff
Mm.
like that is being done on the fly at any given
Oof.
moment in a jazz performance. So like that's why you have people like Gary Bartz who say, look, improvisation is just like I can just throw something, you know, it'll like topple over. It's like, yeah, that was an improvisation. It's like we're composing instead of composers. We're composing.
Wow. Yeah, that is a really important differentiation there. Wow,
Mm,
I never really thought about it like that.
yeah,
I never
yeah.
thought of it like that, but that's it. That's absolutely right, because I think even
Hmm.
the idea of improvising, which in and of itself is genius, um,
Hmm.
it is almost looked upon as something,
Dismissive
as
or
it dismissive, as if it takes
mm,
no skill, as if it
hmm,
as if it does not take extreme intelligence to
hmm,
do that,
exactly.
in,
Hmm.
a similar way that, I remember when Serena Williams would say, they always talk about my strength, but they never talk about my strategy, so it's,
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think because improvisation is largely identified with Black folks, that
Hmm.
there's been a narrative that whittles it down to something that is innately in us, that we just can,
Hmm.
we can just do that to some degree.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's some there,
Hmm.
and to some degree there's some truth to that, but like when we start getting into these areas, I mean, you can't just pick up a horn and start improvising. You can't just sit at a
Exactly.
piano and start improvising. So
Yeah.
um
The intellectual aspect of the uh, of Black people at large is always suppressed in analysis. I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why,
yes,
but
right,
it's
exactly.
like, there's something to it. Like they'll say, "Oh, they can dance. Oh, they can sing so well. Oh man, they can like make things up." But they really shy away from the intellectual properties of these artists
There you
that
go.
is necessary to create that art, or to or even to play basketball. Michael Jordan is an incredible strategist, there's incredible intelligence going into that went into his decision making on the court.
Exactly, because I think
People
people
shy
don't
away from that part.
Absolutely, yeah, because in their
Mm-hmm.
mind, these decisions are somewhat instinctual, and they don't require any strategy or study or thought. And so I think you
Mm-hmm.
make a great point. I mean, that what you said right there is so quotable. It should be
Mm-hmm.
like on a billboard somewhere about the suppression, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of
Yes.
of analysis. I think that's a brilliant takeaway that you just stated. Um,
Yes.
and so when we flip the record, now Train is on
Mm-hmm.
tenor. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, Summertime, I would be stuck on the first two tracks so bad. I would play My Favorite Things, and then Every Time We Say Goodbye
Mm-hmm.
Follows, that
Mm-hmm.
I could literally loop those two songs for
Oh
like
yeah.
half a day, and I might not
Mm-hmm.
even get to the B side. But
Yeah.
you know, but let's talk about Summertime, because again, this
Mm-hmm.
is another shining example of a really dope arrangement. Summertime has
Mm-hmm.
never been, I'm gonna just keep it all the way 100. The tune
Yeah.
in and of itself has never, I don't really ever need to hear Summertime. I mean, I do love Sam Cooke's
Mm-hmm.
version. There are
Mm-hmm.
very few versions where I'm like, you know what, I really dig that. But by and
Yeah.
large, I don't really need to hear
Yeah.
Summertime, shout out to Gershwin and all. But
Mm-hmm.
Train playing it,
Yeah.
I can make the time.
With that the pedal and the harmony, it's just, I'm just saying, it always comes back to the producer decisions. It's like, and
Yeah.
you got Elvin doing that Latinish, Elvinish swing type of thing under it. It's like, that's a sound. It's a vibe. And it's like I wonder how I would love to be a fly on the wall to see how those choices came about. You
Yes.
know, I would like to see if Train had any kind of instruction, or if they just did it on the
Right?
fly. Because like
Yeah.
it took a very long time for me to learn, actually, from David Weiss, that the bass line on uh, um, Fall, Wayne
Oh,
Shorter's Fall.
yeah.
Like all that stuff, that was written out. I thought that was Ron Carter. I thought Ron Carter was
Oh,
like improvising that stuff. It is actually written down by
really?
Wayne Shorter. Yeah.
That makes when we think about the composer who wrote,
Hmm.
when we think about Wayne, that makes
Hmm.
total
Yeah.
sense. Oh wow, that's
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
have to go back and I love that tune as well.
Hmm.
From the Nefertiti album, for anybody who's
Hmm.
interested. So we got the pedal thing, and then McCoy's playing this kind of whole tone kind of thing going on
Hmm.
during
Yeah.
the I guess the chorus, and it's so nasty. It's so groid.
Yeah.
It's
It
just so
is.
it's
It sounds like a preacher, like the
yeah.
way that he states the melody over songs like that. Like you could, uh, there's like certain method to it. When you listen to certain like certain records back to back, you like, okay, on tempos like this they do that, and tunes like this they do that. Whenever there's a pedal, they go into this type of sound, and like there's all kinds of choices that are being made that made the signature of the group, of the recording of that time. Uh,
Mm, yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's what can I say? It's absolutely mind blowing,
Yeah,
what they were doing, and they were just simply being themselves.
that's right.
you know.
Let's just try it this way,
Hmm.
but the song end the album ending with "But Not For Me," we can tell
Hmm.
with the arrangement that this was something that Train was being intentional about, because we
Hmm.
hear Train signature changes that he
Hmm.
was exploring.
Yeah.
And this is another tune where, you know they're writing love songs, but not for me. And it almost, the way Train is
Hmm.
doing it, it's almost like they ain't writing them for me and fuck it. Like I like
Yeah,
like the
that's a
approach
different
is,
treat.
there's an
Yeah.
irony. There's such playfulness and humor and irony and seriousness and
Hmm.
deep artistry going on there, and boldness to take a
Yeah.
song like that and turn it into um impressions or something, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
turn it into
And that's
something like
some
that.
and that's some very black stuff
Yes,
to do. Like you see that in hip hop all the time. They'll take like a beautiful like Phil Collins song or something and add like the hardest beat to it.
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
they
Yeah,
take like a little tiny sample of like a little piano melody that's very beautiful, and then I'll end up like the hardest track on the song on the record.
it's
Um,
true.
and yeah, Train was doing that in many ways with his arrangements of these standards.
Yeah.
He would blackify
Black
it.
vibe. Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, we just it's really fun to hear him play those changes over these kind of songs, whether it's Body and Soul or this one. That
Hmm.
is such a treat. Man,
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus, I can't tell you what it means to have sat and chilled and just unpacked this record
Oh
with
yeah.
you.
It's
This is
it's
like a highlight for me. So
Yeah, it's so great to go over these memories with you, because out of all the people in the world, just like you were just the perfect person to really uh, check out every detail of what's going on, because you are so insightful, um, musically, culturally. Uh, there's no greater person to tell our story than you. Uh, I am so glad that our words about this great art form have been crafted by you. I feel you
oh
are
wow.
anointed. I feel that we need to multiply you in some way, kind of way. That you nothing but jelly standard writers need to be out there, because we need the story told right. It really needs to be told right. And so I'm just chilling with you, and um, our friendship, our kinship through the music, through the culture. It's just the perfect. I would not want to spend you know my hours listening to music like this with any person else than you, uh, to talk about it, because you're just jelly. Like there's nobody
Oh,
like jelly.
man.
Nobody hears like jelly does.
Wow, you got me little tears popping up in the corners, man. That is the highest honor to hear that coming from someone whose ear, whose vision, whose compositional approach, whose musicianship, whose virtuosity I respect to the degree that I do yours.
Mm,
So that's just that's just a great honor to hear you speak
thank you.
of me in such high regard. I do appreciate it. And I feel so blessed to have you supporting me on this podcast and talking to me about this record that means so much to you, so
Hmm.
much to me. And
Yes.
just thank you so much, Marcus. Where can the people find you?
MarcusStrickland.com, or go to Instagram.com/Marcus Strickland, with two S's.
Yes, that's very
You're,
important, y'all.
yeah, you'll be able to find links, all the links. I designed my website myself, so it's a very personal visual representation of what I'm doing at any given moment. So go to my site. It's actually a quite an experience to check out how I've laid out visually what I'm hearing.
It is absolutely stunning. I recommend everybody check it out. Exchange Village, check it out, support. Thank you to Marcus Strickland. I am your host, Angelika Beener. Thank you for listening. Join us again next time. This is Milestones.